Russell Salvatore is one of the most successful restaurateurs in the history of Western New York. And like any great coach, athlete, or businessman, Russell has a formula for success.
Well, number one, Bob, I think the reason for my success is I love what I do. If you love what you're doing and you dream it, eat it, and sleep it every single night, you're going to be successful. You pay a lot of penalty for it. In order to be a good restaurateur and a successful restaurateur, it ruins your family life a little bit because it's difficult to give both sides the amount of time they deserve. Your family deserves it, and I just was stubborn enough. I love the restaurant business so much, and I goofed up a little bit by not giving the attention to my family. They all love me and everything like that. They know what I'm like. I go back to when I was 17 and I was tending bar for my dad. Everybody would have Christmas dinner at home, and I'd say, "Pa, let me stay on the corner saloon with the guys smoking that Italian stogie and eating a hard-boiled egg," and I would stay Christmas with them. So it stayed in me. But in order to be a good, successful restaurateur, do what you expect to be done to you. If you're going to go out for service, number one, I'm a very ticklish individual. I don't like eating in a restaurant. If you're going to go out and spend good money, number one, I would like a tablecloth on my table. I would like a linen napkin. It's so funny because a little story, when I was off for about a year when I turned the place over to my son, I went to the Red Lobster for dinner, and it was excellent. It's not my type of a restaurant, but I was eating out every night. And I had like 2 or 3 pound-and-a-quarter lobsters. They were out of this world. I must have went through 50 napkins because it's a paper napkin. So the hostess come up and I told her, says, "You know, I love your lobster. The place is great. When I embarrass you, I want to come here once a week. Can I bring my own linen?" And she allowed me to bring my own linen, my own tablecloth, and my own linen napkins. And when you really break it down, a linen napkin is cheaper to serve than 3 paper napkins if you're going to eat it. And I go back to the days when I took over my dad's corner restaurant. I changed a small pizzeria and threw some tables out. We were doing no business, but I went and bought tablecloths. I bought linen napkin. I put a little flower vase, and when you came in for a pizza, you got linen. You got a little plate with the Lazy Susan, a knife and fork, you know, eat pizza. High class, let's put it high class or something. But service, there's so many people out there that don't understand service. I don't mean to put them down. Little ticklish things that you would not find in Russell's. When you're done eating, the table has to be completely done when you're done eating in order to be clean. I have busboys to clear everything, brush the crumbs off. You go out for dinner, how often, the people listening to me right now, you go out for dinner and the waiter will come up to you and ask you, "Can I get you dessert?" That's a no-no. Your next step is, fine, can I offer you a cup of coffee, a cappuccino, an espresso, and here's your dessert menu. You don't serve dessert first and then come back with coffee. That would not happen in Russell's. And I mean, we get our complaints, and I mean, when we get a complaint, if you're here with your wife and that steak's not cooked properly, you got to remove both dinners from the table at the same time, and you bring them back at the same time. You follow me? And I have people for me, and I correct them. If a person is unhappy with their dinner, don't tell them, "Well, I'll give you an after-dinner drink." They don't drink. I'll buy a dessert. If you're unhappy with a dinner, take the dinner off the menu. Why are you going to charge somebody for something that they eat? To buy them a dessert sometimes is more expensive than taking the dinner off. You're only taking the food cost, and you're going to make that person feel good, and they'll come back and they'll try again. You can go a step further and say, "Fine, I'm sorry, upset your evening. Taking the dinner off, and I'm going to give you a $25 gift certificate. Come back." Make that person walk out that door that they love you. That's so important for them to come back. That one individual that you might give a bad taste in their mouth, they're going to tell 25 or 50 people. I think I learned it immediately, because when I was younger and I was like 17, 18, I was going, let's just say in my 20s, I was out for dinner every other Sunday. And I went out for dinner, you dressed up. Number one, going out for dinner was dressing up. The clientele, the people that go out today for dinner, it's discouraging because you try to run a nice property and a guy will come in with his baseball hat on or sneakers or shorts. It isn't fair to the restaurateur or to the individual that's coming in to celebrate their 50th anniversary to sit down. Number one, you will not get into Russell's with a baseball hat on. I have guys come to the bar, and this is the honest to God's truth. They'll come and sit down at the bar and they got their baseball hat on. The waiter will go, the bartender will go to the waiter and say, "Sir, I'm very, very sorry, but Mr. Salvatore does not allow baseball hats on board in the restaurant. Would you be so kind to take your hat off, and your first drink is compliments to him?" And I win them that way. What's it going to cost you? 25, 50 cents to buy someone a drink? It's not charging it $8 a drink, and you don't get them mad, but I can't stand someone coming into a property with a baseball hat on. It isn't fair to the public. And I started this, I'm saying the truth, I was fussy back in those days. The only reason I learned this. You were going out to restaurants back when we were younger, 50 years ago, that were all high-class restaurants. Not demanding any more than we're expecting, but you remember Victor Hugo's, you remember the Cloister, you remember the Park Lane. When I went out on Sunday, these are the places I ate in. I went to school from learning from Peter Gus, the Delapo family, the Cloister. It was a pleasure to go out to eat that. It was like going to a fashion show. You follow me? That's how I learned, and it got into my stomach, and the more I did it when I traveled. I mean, I can remember going to a restaurant in New York City, the Tavern on the Green, across from everybody was dressed. When you went out in those days to those restaurants, if you didn't have a suit jacket or a tie, at the door they had a closet. They gave you a tie and a suit jacket. Try to do that today. You know what the guy would do? He'd probably punch you in the nose and say, "I'm going someplace else where I can go the way I wanna." You know, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, we get some people, I joke with them, not make them feel bad. That baseball hat is the worst thing. A guy came in the other night and he wasn't with a suit jacket or a tie. And he asked me, he says, "Sir," he says, "I like the looks of this restaurant. What do you have to have on to get into this restaurant?" I said, "A wallet." And he started laughing, and I won him over, you know, but he was not dressed. The biggest gripe, I got a sign at the door, is baseball hats. Why do people insist on going with baseball hats? Something's got to be done with that. That's the most rudest thing in the world, going into does anybody that's listening to me, no offense, do you eat at home at the supper table with your family with a baseball hat on? I'm talking to people who are why do you want to do it in a place of a public appearance? Am I wrong, Robert?
No, but I think those guys probably are wearing a baseball cap.
At home?
Yeah.
Well, if it was the wife, I would have the big rolling pin and hit the guy right in the head. I mean, we never did that in our family. Never. But those are years ago.
Russ originally did pasta dishes when he owned Salvatore's, but there is a reason why you don't see those traditional Italian favorites on the menu at Russell's.
Well, you know what? When I gave the place to my son down the street about 9 years ago, and that's I was going to step back, I didn't want to open up an Italian restaurant because for some reason, we are very successful. We probably try to serve the finest steaks. Everybody's got great steaks. The service makes it taste that much better. People, when they come in, I always wanted to be by the Buffalo Airport. You got a lot of hotels. Everybody is looking for a steakhouse. You'll never hear anybody come in the airport and say, "Where's there a fine Italian restaurant?" They're all good. But when I had the Italian restaurant down the street, you have the Italian people come in and they criticize. No one likes anybody else's sauce but their mother's sauce. Nobody likes anybody's artichoke heart but their mother's heart. Oh, Russ, it's good, but not as good as my grandmother made it. It's good, it's not as good as my mother. I couldn't take that any longer. Now everybody comes in and they say to me, Russ, the best steak I've ever had. The steak is out of this world. You get more pats on the back of the steak, and the pats on the back would make you continue 68 years being in the hospitality business.
Russell does feel there's a reason why Italian restaurateurs like the owners of Iliad Apollo's and the Billatier family at Chefs are successful.
I think what it is because, don't forget, being in the restaurant, when our families came over from Italy, we weren't the most liked people. And we went into the saloon business. None of us had education. My father, no education. The easiest thing was going into the saloon business. Everybody chewed tobacco, smoked cigars. You go behind the bar, you get a liquor license, and my dad bought the first drink all the time. You were in a business which was a low-life business, the saloon business. Today, all those restaurants that you mentioned are family-owned. Family-owned. You got the restaurant business that's going up today. Who owns it? A lawyer that's very, very successful. You know, a doctor that's very successful. Family-owned business started and did not make money. You had to work hard when you were Italian, and very hard. I remember my dad having the corner saloon, and when the guy come in to get him back there, he says, son, when that guy comes in that door, that shoe box, you shine his shoes. And I had to shine that guy's shoes for a quarter tip. The American people are very fortunate to be successful, educated. They come from good families. We didn't come from rich families. We had a struggle. That's today, every good, successful Italian restaurant, every good, successful restaurant, you will see it'll be Italian, and it's always chef, owner, chef, owner, chef, owner. Iliad Apollo, he's in his kitchen as much as I am. You take Louis at Chefs, and I mean, he's in his kitchen, he's at that door. You go to these American restaurants, you got a hostess. You don't have people with a heart that's going to say, good morning, how are you? We kiss a lot of butts. We love people.
That love has meant a history of giving back for Russ Salvatore.
Well, it started when I happened to break my ankle, and they took me to ECMC. And at that time, I had a television set that was probably the size of my watch, that was about 80 years old. And I said to Jody LeMayo, I said, Joe, you know what? I don't believe that you have to pay to turn a television set on in a hospital. He says, that's been going on for years. I says, what do I have to do in order to discontinue this? He says, well, Russ, you want to buy new television sets? Well, I called up, I says, how many you got? He says, 400 something. I called a friend of mine over at Stereo Advantage, and he says, Russ, I'll get you television sets for $70. I figured out it was peanuts. Well, that backfired on me because you have to have a certain television set for hospitals, which was $400 and some. So I spent quite a bit of money, and I didn't realize how many hearts I hit home giving this person that's sick. In the orthopedic room, they built it after me, a nice looking television to turn on and no charge. And I started there. The next thing I did, I heard a girl come in for dinner, and she says, I just left Roswell, and my mother's in the hospital, and would you believe, it's $8.50 a day to turn the television on, and we don't have the money to turn the television on. I immediately, that next day, I hope I dropped dead if I'm lying, I called Candace Johnson at Roswell and said, what do I have to do in order to let this charge go by? And now when you turn your TV on in Roswell, it says, good morning, I'm Russ Salvatore. I want to wish you all the luck in the world, and your television set is compliments of me. I will do every hospital in the city of Buffalo with new television sets, and where there will never be a charge as long, before I die, I will have that done, I swear. I'm out there, and if anybody's listening, and you need a help in the I've contacted everybody. They know it. You know what I like about doing the hospitals? You're hitting everybody under the sun that can't afford to turn the television. You got cancer. You're there for 3 months. You know what $850 times 3 months comes to? It's more expensive than your hospital bill, for God's sake. And it hit 1,000 homes, and I'm doing all the hospitals, and now I've just got involved where they've come to see me, and there's a couple of young teenagers, baseball parks, like right over here on Worley Drive. They come and they says, would you build a new batting cage? I says, you know what, you put my name on that fence, Russ Salvatore's baseball diamond, I'll give you a brand new baseball diamond. They took it. I give them $250,000 to make it, but there's going to be Russ Salvatore's baseball field for little kids. They see me with their parents in here for dinner. Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. I'm crazy, and I love helping the community. I said it, I have nothing to do with my money. If I die, I don't know who's going to fight out of it, but I'll make sure I'm broke before I die. Let me ask you, would you buy me my next vodka?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm a heavy drinker. No, but it does make you feel good inside when you do give back. I just have no idea what I would do. I work hard. It makes my business, giving back to the community is what's made me successful in the restaurant business. Not that my food is any better, but my father always taught me, son, remember one thing. If you give, you'll get back. And he gave during the Depression, fed the neighborhood. He had a corner saloon with a speakeasy. Everybody got potatoes and lettuce from my father's corner saloon. I guess I learned that from him. It's in the heart.
Hi, I'm Cindy Abbott. We're behind the camera, and we are in beautiful East Aurora in the beautiful, and I mean beautiful and historic East Aurora Theater on a picture-perfect day in the sense of looks like a postcard outside. But here with me is Senator Pat Gallivan. And what is most important, I think, about the fact that we're in East Aurora is the movies that are out there that have been shot here because of how beautiful it is. But also, you're the guy. I remember so many years ago when we were talking about film credits and creating a film industry in the region, not just Buffalo, but the region, Niagara Falls as well. You said, this is a good idea, and you supported it. And now it looks like those film credits might be in danger.
Well, I'd like to say that it was my idea originally. It wasn't. There was a lot of people involved.
You really went out there.
You should take some credit. You were involved as well. But the catalyst really was a meeting that we had with the film commissioner and ironically, Bill Fichtner, who thought they had an idea how to help the industry in Western New York, despite the film commissioner's best efforts to attract the industry to Western New York. We know the challenges they faced with the costs.
Well, you know, Pat, I was just looking for Senator. We've known each other for so long. About 5 years ago, we looked at the economic impact numbers, and it was under $1 million, like $750,000. Today, when you look at it, it's almost, if not over, $40 million.
I think last year was $40 million, and it was interesting. I recently reviewed the economic impact and the spending. The 3 years prior to the upstate credit being implemented, I think the total spending was about $4 million. The last 3 years, or the 3 years immediately following the implementation of that enhanced credit, was over $60 million in Western New York. So we knew the challenges. It was very costly for film producers to come to Western New York. They didn't have the crew base, the base of workers, the behind-the-scene workers. They had to be shipped up from New York City, and staying in hotels cost money, paying the overtime costs money. So the thought was, if we could do something in the way of an enhanced credit for upstate, we can attract people here put Western New York on a level playing field when it comes to attracting films and build a crew base. And lo and behold, it happened. This is, I think, a success story. We are very quick to criticize government and some government programs, but I think this is one, it's a real example that the elected officials worked with the community and the people in the industry to do something good for the betterment of the entire community.
Well, it's funny because I remember when there was a meeting in which Bill Fichtner was there, you were there, some other legislators as well, and we talked about this. And what it was adding an additional tax benefit for filming in the region. So maybe that's something you could explain a little bit about, because the criticism that has been leveled is about the program statewide, that somehow the majority of the films are being, going to New York City. But
so the state had a film production credit, and most of the work was done in New York City. When they went upstate, so to speak, they didn't want to move too much out of New York City because of the cost of bringing a crew and workers 300-400 miles from the city out to Western New York or even to other upstate areas. So the notion was to provide an additional 10% for films upstate, an additional 10% from the credit that they already got, a little additional incentive for upstate to level the playing field, so to speak, for Western New York. Now, in the long run, when you look at the overall picture, it's good for everybody in the state. Picture, no pun intended. So we had a film production credit. It was doing some good things for New York City, but not the rest of the state, and we should be concerned with the whole state. And now when we look at that program in its entirety and what it's done for Western New York and the state, and I like to look at it as an investment. So there are people that criticize a tax incentive like this in targeting a certain industry. I look at it a little different. The state has made an investment in an industry. We've created jobs. We've brought work and money and outside dollars, not just to Western New York, the entire state. And we've got to return on our investment of 15%. Who would not invest $1 to get $1.15 back? And so that's what it is. So for every tax dollar spent, government gets back $1.15 in the form of taxes from the spending of the film producers, of the production workers, of the spending at the restaurant, the hotels, the tourists, the additional industries that pop up. I think it's been a very successful program, and I certainly will work to make sure, I will work to keep it in place.
You know what's interesting, I was with some folks from Visit Buffalo Niagara, we were just talking in general, and of course with our tourism agency, you're always looking at, how do we get people in here in the winter? We want to make sure that the hotel rooms are filled. And it's always usually a downturn, or there's always something, going down once the really cold weather comes. And this past year there was an upturn, and they said it's got to be because of the film industry, that we had a lot of things shooting in Buffalo. So there's a direct result. Those people are staying in hotel rooms, they're eating, just as you said. But this creation of jobs is also very exciting, because I know the union has been adding members, that for the union productions, there are still independent films that are being shot, and these are all very creative jobs that people would like.
The numbers don't lie. We've seen the additional spending in Western New York. If I'm not mistaken, last year there was over 2,500 jobs created in Western New York alone. Some of them are temporary, but some are permanent. And you look at things like things like the local union, the stagehand union, IATSE, I forget exactly what the acronym is. They hardly had any members 5 or 6 years ago from Western New York. I think last year they swore in 30 new members.
Wow.
Who are now working in a full-time capacity in that industry. When The Pulse was here in Western New York and filmed here, I talked to an individual, he might have been from Philadelphia, a younger man who had his own company doing the electric, or grabbers, I think they call it.
You're learning the lingo.
But nonetheless, he was shipped in from Philadelphia to come to Western New York to work on that particular film. And he was thinking of moving here and bringing his company here because there's enough work. We talked to some people that are actors originally from Buffalo that are now out in L.A. that can't believe that they don't get to work in L.A. and they come back home to Buffalo to work. Another young guy from the east side of Buffalo who started his own business, and he's now placed thousands of extras in films, and all these local actors, he's placing them not just in in films in Western New York, but in other places in the country. And his base is Buffalo, New York.
Well, when we walked into this beautiful theater here, which has such a wonderful historic feel in East Aurora, you could share the anecdote that you heard from folks that were here. They just had people in looking at it, right?
The proprietors of the
Yes.
theater they talk about people all the time that they have seen their theater on film, and because they saw it in a movie, they want to come to East Aurora to see where it was shot. Vidlers, the local businesses, have benefited from this. You talk with the Chamber of Commerce here, and they have seen a direct benefit and have been very cooperative in working with the Film Commission to help on past films and bringing additional films to East Aurora in particular, but also Western New York. And I think that's when you hear anecdotally the people that come in from out of town, regardless of where they are in Western New York, whether it's in East Aurora or whether it's down in Randolph or whether it's in the city of Buffalo, it's the same. They've had a wonderful experience. They were treated extremely well. They had no idea what a beautiful area we live in, and they couldn't wait to come back.
Well, and in fact, when I was here, when we were setting up, I was talking to the folks here from the theater, and they gave me a list of the restaurants that I need to come out and try, because there's great food. You know, there are wonderful restaurants. There's great things going on here. Senator, finally, what should people do? I've received a couple of calls from people that had made movies here in Buffalo, and they saw this report that calling, for another senator is calling that they eliminate the tax credits. What should people do that are concerned?
I think people should speak up, reach out to their state legislators, their local elected officials, and speak up and say that this is a good thing. So it's not just the good feeling of the notoriety or the focus on Western New York and its good people. That's a wonderful thing. But look at the numbers. Everybody in Western New York, they're taxpayers, they're concerned about government spending. Their dollar is being invested in a program by the state, and the state is getting a 15% return for them, for the citizens of Western New York and the citizens of the state. We can help to provide them numbers. I'm sure the Film Commission would be willing to provide the numbers. My office certainly would be willing to provide any citizen the data that's out there. But I think they need to speak up, make their voice heard to their elected officials to ensure that their elected officials are properly representing them.
Great. Thank you, Senator Gallivan.
Sure thing, Cindy.
And thank you for supporting the film credit. You heard it. You need to support it if you want to continue having films made here in our region. I'm Cindy Abbott Letro for Behind the Camera, and we'll see you next time.